In the headlines, U.S. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi visits Seoul and calls on Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to apologize for Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women. Exports, a traditional backbone of the Korean economy, are losing steam. The contribution of outbound shipments to Korea's economic growth fell to a 5-year low last year. And no breakthrough yet in talks on Iran's nuclear program. 2 days have passed since a self-imposed Tuesday deadline. Welcome to Primetime News on this Thursday, April 2nd. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us for the top stories this hour. We begin with U.S. Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's bipartisan delegation to several Asian nations, including South Korea.
On the second day of her visit here, the minority leader urged Japan to treat comfort women issue as a human rights matter. Our Chu Myung-gil has more.
Nancy Pelosi called for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to apologize for the Japanese military's coercion of young Korean and other Asian women into sexual slavery during World War II.
We have been clear about what we'd like to hear about comfort women. Whether the Prime Minister does that in that speech or not, I hope that a statement will be made.
It's an issue that Seoul has repeatedly pressed on Tokyo. During talks earlier with President Park Geun-hye, Pelosi expressed sympathy over the matter, saying it's a women's rights issue that should be solved. President Park pushed its urgency as the last surviving Korean victims are in their late 80s. Korea hopes to help U.S. lawmakers better understand the issue of Japan's wartime wrongdoings ahead of Abe's address to a joint session of the U.S. Congress. Diplomatic relations between Korea and Japan have been very tense, with the Abe administration reluctant to clearly acknowledge Japan's past. Seoul had criticized Abe for attempting to shift the blame. for the forcible recruitment of the so-called comfort women to private brokers, denying the Japanese government's involvement. Pelosi and the other 9 members of Congress will head to Japan on Friday. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Tensions are rising over North Korea's unilateral demand for a pay raise at the joint Kaesong industrial complex. The South Korean government is calling for a wage freeze until an inter-Korean agreement is reached, warning of legal measures against companies that disregard this order. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
In a statement on Thursday in Seoul, the Unification Ministry asked for a minimum wage freeze for North Korean workers until a deal is reached between the two Koreas. The ministry warned that companies ignoring the freeze could face administrative and legal measures under the Inter-Korean Exchange and Cooperation Act. The statement comes just over a week before payday for the workers starts on April 10th. Last month, North Korea demanded a unilateral pay raise and revision of 13 regulations, including scrapping the current salary cap of 5%. South Korea says these issues must be settled through government-level talks. The wage tussle is raising concerns that another unilateral shutdown of the complex could follow. But experts say Pyongyang will refrain from repeating the closure it initiated 2 years ago.
If the Kaesong industrial complex closes again, it'll be hard to turn inter-Korean relations around. So it's highly likely that North Korea will use it as a means to intimidate and pressure South Korea.
The Kaesong industrial complex, where more than 54,000 North Koreans work at 124 South Korean companies, is the last remaining form of inter-Korean cooperation. A high-ranking South Korean official said that the best way to improve the management of the joint business park is to open it up to more foreign companies. Now, both sides agreed to that measure nearly 2 years ago, but little progress has been made so far. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Speculation is mounting over the possible deployment of the U.S. missile defense system called THAAD to the Korean Peninsula. Now this, as the South Korean and American defense chiefs are set to meet in Seoul next week. Connie Kim reports.
Will they or won't they? With around a week remaining until U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter arrives in Seoul for talks with his South Korean counterpart Han Min-gu, the elephant in the room is whether they touch upon the possible deployment to the Korean Peninsula of the U.S. missile defense system called THAAD.
The U.S. government has not formally proposed talks on that. If Carter suggests official discussions, it becomes a political issue. Seoul and Washington will then be pressed to make a decision.
Some observers believe a bigger issue needs to be addressed before the U.S. proposes talks about THAAD. Experts say that Seoul and Washington would have to agree on the severity of the North Korean nuclear threat in order for THAAD talks to proceed.
Budget sequestration in the U.S. meant defense spending was cut. The U.S. believes North Korea has scaled up its nuclear threat, so the Pentagon says it needs more funds. The South Korean government, on the hand, is not keen on increasing its defense budget.
Other experts think THAAD is unlikely to come up during Carter's visit.
China's reaction on the THAAD issue, very controversial. I don't think he's going to raise any controversial issues at all. Rather, he will say the U.S. commitment to the defense of South Korea.
China and Russia say THAAD threatens their national security because the system's radar has a range of up to 2,000 kilometers, meaning it would cover significant parts of their mainland territories. Sandwiched between Beijing and Washington, observers say Seoul must make its own objective decision and not be swayed by the superpowers. However, until official talks on THAAD materialize, the two countries will focus on trying to find common ground on security, military, and diplomatic issues at upcoming defense talks in Washington and Singapore. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
In her third year in office, President Park Geun-hye has a number of issues to resolve on the diplomatic front, including deadlocked inter-Korean ties. And apparently this issue is top of mind with the Korean public as well. Our Chery Sun tells us more.
In a recent survey of 1,000 adults conducted by local daily the 동아일보 and the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, 27% of respondents said improving inter-Korean relations should be the administration's #1 foreign policy priority. More than 80% said President Park should hold summit talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Even 3/4 of those who consider themselves to be politically conservative, often hardliners when it comes to North Korea, said an inter-Korean summit was necessary. Analysts say this reflects South Korean fatigue after 2 years of deadlock and no tangible outcome from the country's North Korea policies. Additionally, 40% of those surveyed said Seoul should lift commercial sanctions on Pyongyang. The sanctions were imposed after the North's torpedo attack on a South Korean warship in 2010. While it remains a sensitive issue, support for the lifting of sanctions jumped 10 percentage points in 5 months. Still, people thought it was necessary to maintain strong deterrence against North Korea's provocations, with 60% saying Seoul should employ the U.S. anti-ballistic missile system THAAD to counter security threats from Pyongyang. Moving down the priority list, South Koreans felt that Seoul's alliance with Washington and its economic partnership with Beijing deserved attention. As for Seoul's frosty relations with Tokyo, 2/3 of Korean people said the two sides should work to improve ties even if Japan continues to deny its past atrocities. Respondents said better relations with Japan are necessary to settle historical issues and to reduce economic fallout. 최유선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea's exports are losing steam as the country's traditional growth engine, the contribution of outbound shipments to Korea's economic growth, fell to a 5-year low last year due to sluggish demand abroad and falling global oil prices. Hwang Jie reports.
Just 1.5 percentage points from Korea's 3.3% growth last year came from exports of goods and services. That equals a contribution to growth rate of around 45%, the lowest reading since 2009, right after the global financial crisis. The Bank of Korea data shows that the contribution rate shot up to over 200% in 2011, but has been on a downward trend since then. Now, concern is building over the recovery pace of Asia's export powerhouse, Korea, as demand at home also remains fragile.
China's slowing growth is a major uncertainty for Korean exports, which rely heavily on the world's second-largest economy. It's unlikely that the domestic economy will improve drastically this year compared to 2014.
Korea's exports actually dropped for the third straight month in March, with a decline from February to March logging the biggest slump in over 2 years. The government blames the fall on the drop of international oil costs, which are keeping prices low for petrochemical products, one of the major exporting items. But even if oil-related products are not counted, outbound shipments rose a mere 0.2% in March from the previous year, pointing to sluggish demand from consumers worldwide. The government says it will devise short-term measures like strengthening the competitiveness of local small and mid-sized exporters. But experts add that it's more critical to diversify and expand Korea's exporting market to the Middle East and South and Central America. 황지혜, Arirang News.
More foreign customers are discovering the amazing array of fashion and cosmetic products on Korean online shopping malls, but online security systems in Korea have been a major roadblock to international cyber commerce. To help out overseas customers, the government is pushing to simplify the purchasing steps for international buyers. Song Ji-sun has this report.
Boosting foreign online sales of popular Korean items could give domestic manufacturers a big lift as they struggle in the face of slowing domestic demand. For example, Korean online shopping mall OKDGG.com reported that they carried 1 million items last year, tripling the numbers from 2013. Sales also escalated twofold to $8 million. The most popular goods were Korean fashion items like accessories and clothing, followed by cosmetics. Currently, foreign direct online purchases amount to less than half of Korea's online direct purchase total of $1 billion, but the government sees big potential in this export channel and wants to encourage overseas customers.
액티브 X와 같은 이런 낡은 규제에 안주한 결과 국내 소비자의 해외 직구는 폭발적으로 느는데 해외 소비자의 국내 역직구는 걸음마 수준입니다. 외국만큼 쉽게 결제할 수 있도록 규제를 완화해서 역직구가 활성화되면 이것도 수출 못지않은 효과를 거둘 수 있을 것입니다.
Many Korean websites require ActiveX to make online transactions. The security program only works on Microsoft's Internet Explorer web browser, meaning that customers using other platforms cannot shop on Korean sites. By 2017, the government's aim to make 90% of the top 100 private websites ActiveX free. In its place, they're promoting HTML5, which operates on all platforms. Analysts also point out the need to set up websites in various languages, as most of them only are currently operating in English, Chinese, and Japanese. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Spring is one of the best times of the year to pack a bag and go traveling. And to help, the Korean government has picked out some of the must-see destinations in the country. Our cultural correspondent Kim Ji-yeon gives us a sneak peek.
When the days start getting warmer after a long, cold winter, that's when the travel bug bites. So how about taking in some of the best attractions in Korea? The Tourism Ministry has rolled out its annual list of the top 100 places to visit. Standouts among them are 5 traditional palaces built during the Joseon Dynasty, all located in the capital city of Seoul. Sites where travelers can experience traditional culture were also included, such as the Bukchon Hanok Village, Insadong, and Namdaemun Market. But the top travel destinations are not just limited to the capital city. In fact, most of them are sites in Korea's southeastern Gyeongsangdo province, including the Purguksa Temple. Built during the Silla dynasty, the temple in Gyeongju City is not only a beloved relic, but also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Seoraksan Mountain in northeastern Gangwon-do province also made the list, with its accessible hiking trails and panoramic views. And in the southernmost Jeju Island, there's a 90-meter-high crater at the top of the Seongsan Ilchulbong Peak. The crater was formed by a volcanic eruption 100,000 years ago and now serves as an ideal spot for horse riding. More information on these top travel spots can be found through the state-run Korea Tourism Organization. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
No breakthrough yet in the talks on Iran's nuclear program. 2 days have passed since the self-imposed deadline in Switzerland, with the six world powers and Iran still clinging to hope of a possible deal.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this critical juncture represents over 10 years of diplomatic efforts. What's the latest update on the talks?
Well, after 8 straight days of marathon negotiations in the Swiss city of Lucerne, Iran's top diplomats said there had been significant progress. However, no final result has emerged. The 7 foreign ministers there canceled their other commitments and resumed a joint session early Thursday. But experts say the P5+1 countries and Iran remain far apart on major issues.
I think by all accounts that I've heard, the outstanding issues are UN Security Council resolutions and research and development of Iran's nuclear program. More specifically, the Iranians want all 6 UN Security Council resolutions to be terminated. The P5+1 has other ideas about whether or not that's a good idea. And then on research and development, Iran would like to increase the amount of research and development that it carries out on different technical aspects of its nuclear program over the duration of any deal that is signed.
The two sides also want different documents at the end of this round of talks. Iran wants a general political statement, while the UN Security Council member countries plus Germany want to include detailed steps leading to a final accord that's set to be reached in June. And on another type of negotiation, debt talks continue between Greece and its European creditors. This as a top-ranking EU official has renewed hope of a potential deal. Speaking from Madrid, European Council President Donald Tusk said he was confident a compromise with Athens could be reached by the end of this month. When asked whether the European Union was prepared for a possibility of a no-deal outcome, he said the situation was under control.
I think that today we can say that the situation in Greece is under control. And I don't think that it's my role today here in Madrid to speculate something about, Plan B, because we are focused on this discussion about Plan A. It means successful financial assistance to Greece under European rules.
Meanwhile, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras sent an updated list of economic reforms to Eurozone partners on Wednesday. Greece is urgently seeking to unlock much-needed financial aid as the government is only weeks away from running out of cash. And shifting to the United States, California has declared a state of emergency as it faces one of its worst water shortages. On Wednesday, Governor Jerry Brown ordered the first mandatory water restrictions in the state's history. The measures include directing cities to reduce water usage by 25%. The urgent action comes less than a week after he approved a $1 billion fund to provide relief to communities that are struggling amid this prolonged drought.
We're in an historic drought, and that demands unprecedented action. It's for that reason that I'm issuing an executive order mandating substantial water reduction across our state. As Californians, we have to pull together and save water in every way we can.
California is entering its 4th straight year of record-breaking drought. Despite some rainstorms earlier in February, the state's reservoirs are at historically low levels for this time of year, as farmers and businesses grow increasingly concerned of running dry. And switching gears now, the New York International Auto Show has kicked off, showing off the latest models for this year and beyond. Some of the biggest trends hitting the industry include a push for luxury and better technology. For instance, Kia Motors is phasing out CD players and hardwired navigation systems in favor of wireless apps and smartphone integration. Experts say it's part of a broader push by car makers to infuse vehicles with cutting-edge technology.
Manufacturers are looking at what technologies are necessary, from infotainment to safety, consumer expectations of USB connectors or Bluetooth or backup camera, and now it's things like lane departure or blind spot detection or front collision avoidance.
And as a nod to stricter emissions standards, many of the new models have been refreshed with lighter frames and improved fuel efficiency. The New York Auto Show is set to run through April 12th. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. We start with the KBL Championship Finals, where the Dongbu Promi took home court against the 2-0 leading Mobis Phoebus for the pivotal Game 3 of the series. Now the Phoebus fired out the gate, building a big 11-point lead by halftime. The Promi weren't backing down though, climbing to within 1 by the last 10 minutes. But the defending champions put together their biggest quarter of the game, seizing the win to put them up 3-0 and a near lock to win it all. Game 4 stays in Wonju on Saturday. Moving on to Thursday's KBO League action, the streaking Tusan Bears took on the Hanwha Eagles in Daejeon. Now, rain wasn't a factor here, unlike in other ballparks. Hanwha's Kim Tae-gyun, however, was a big factor, bringing in the first run in the third inning and another in the fourth to cap off a rally. Now, Tusan tacked on 2 runs in the fifth, but that was it as Mitch Talbot and Hanwha's bullpen were excellent on the mound. Hanwha beat Tusan 4-2 to improve to 2-2. Meanwhile, Kia and SK were rained out after 4 innings, joining the 3 other canceled games of the evening. Moving on, the LPGA's first major of the season is here, with 115 pros shooting for the title and the winner's purse during the 4 rounds of play. Now, the tournament has a new name, but stays in Mission Hills in California. As for the favorites, world number 1 Lydia Ko, who's on a record run, headlines the bunch as she vies to become the youngest major winner ever. Defending champion Lexi Thompson, as well as a number of Korean pros led by Hall of Famer Park Se-ri, who's going for the career Grand Slam, are also legitimate contenders. Finally, to tennis, the top-ranked Serena Williams picked up her 700th career win, padding her already Hall of Fame career with another milestone. The WTA's top-ranked player defeated Sabine Lisicki in 3 sets at the Miami Open to set the mark and advance to the semis. The 19-time major champion is only the 8th woman in the Open era to accomplish the feat. Williams said she had no idea of her record until she was presented with a big cake on the court after her win. And that's all I have for now. Stay tuned for the weather up next. Good night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather forecast. Rain is falling in most parts of the country, accompanied by stormy conditions, plus strong winds are blowing along the eastern and western coast. And the rainy weather is welcome news as the recent dry conditions all but sapped humidity levels. And through tomorrow afternoon, more than 100 millimeters will drop over the mountainous areas of Jeju, while up to 40 millimeters is in store for the inland region. So an umbrella is a must for today and for tomorrow. Once the showers clear up, bright skies skies are in store through Saturday, but on Sunday, more showers will hit areas down south, and temperature-wise, numbers should continue to remain above seasonal averages through the weekend. On to Friday's readings. Seoul reaches a high of 16, Daegu jumps to 23, Gwangju hits 18. Moving on to other places, Daejeon and Jeju should peak at 18, while Dokdo hits 14. Those are the updates I have for you now, but I'll be back with more in just about 2 hours.
Well, hope you have a pretty umbrella out there. Well, that's primetime news on this Thursday. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Chery. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you again soon.